Topic: Romeo Pereira's Black Bread by Zarak Muraj. It was 8 o'clock in the evening on a typical sultry Saturday in the July of 1970. A dark grey cloud, which had ploughed some northern mountains, hung overhead, uncertain whether or not to drop its load of moisture. Two friends in their early 30s, Jacob Gonzalez and Ignacio Diaz, who worked in Romeo Pereira's bakery in Frere Street, Karachi, were now off duty. They sat, deep in conversation, in a small tea shop near the tram lines. I have a plan which will make us rich, Ignacio. All I need is your cooperation and a little financial assistance, said the taller of the two, his hair lank with natural grease. You're not planning to rob a bank, are you, Jacob? The question, though flippant, had a direct reference to a film the two friends had seen the previous week in the Capitol cinema, in which two swarthy Italians with shotguns held up the manager of a provincial bank in Naples and cleaned out the vault. Besides, we don't own any shotguns. Don't be ridiculous, Ignacio. We are not criminals. Man, we are God fearing, law abiding citizens and will operate within the confines of the law. My plan involves an investment, a speculation, if you would like to call it that, which will reap a rich harvest and allow us to do what we have always dreamed of doing, and that is to be able to take a holiday in Goa, the land of our forefathers. For a moment, Ignatius' eyes turned misty as he pictured those highlands of burnt amber, the sparkling rivers, and groves of mango. But he quickly snapped back to the tea shop in Ferrari Street. Ignacio was still doubtful. An investment meant using money, and that was a commodity of which both friends were desperately short. Ignacio didn't have the slightest idea what the scheme was. He had known Jacob since they had dropped out of St. Patrick's School in order to earn a living and support their widowed mothers. But a huge return on a small investment. Something didn't smell right. It was all a little too implausible. On the other hand, Jacob might have recently developed a criminal streak of which he was totally unaware. After a while, he said, "All right, let's hear your plan." Before I unfold my scheme, I want you to know, Ignacio, that it is 100% certainty, like having money in the bank. I got the information from the horse's mouth. A couple of minutes later he straightened up and leaned back in his chair with a look of triumph on his face. "What you are saying," said Ignacio, "is that a ripster has told you to bet on a horse in the fourth race called Sea Raider, and to do the betting through a forecast. How much will we make if the horse comes in?" "Ah, if the horse that comes second is also a rank outsider, ours may be the only ticket and fetch at least 3,000 rupees." He let that sink in. "I don't know, Jacob. The whole thing looks terribly risky. Besides, one can never be certain about these things. What if the fellow is lying? What if he is just trying to make a fast buck out of us? You just can't trust people in this line of business." "It's not a business, Ignacio. It's a sport. Besides, he can't be making a fast buck out of us because he is not getting any commission." "Oh, then why the hell is he doing this for you?" Jacob didn't reply immediately. When he did speak, it was in a low conspiratorial tone. "You see, he's from St. Anthony's parish, and has been secretly seeing my sister Christine against my mother's wishes. As I have not opposed the liaison or put any spokes in his wheel, I think this is his way of thanking and repaying me. Well, business or sport, I still don't like it. There's just too much risk involved. All right, if you're not interested, I'll go elsewhere." He had in the mind the mechanic with the flowery Hawaiian bush shirts. Ignacio finally broke the silence. "There may be, after all, something in what you say. How well do you know this fellow who has given you this information? This fellow who is dating your sister?" Relieved that Ignacio was finally playing ball, Jacob relaxed and bit into his biscuit. Actually, I don't know him all that well. Even the information he has given me is second hand. What? You mean there is a third party in this scheme? This is getting very complicated, Jacob. Do I understand that somebody who is in the know of things has tipped off your sister's boyfriend and he in turn has passed this information on to you? That's about it, Ignacio. Good God. So your sister's boyfriend is not the original informant. How do we know he has been given the correct information? We don't. But somewhere along the line, you have got to trust somebody. We can't be doubting Thomases all our lives. Ignacio looked skywards for inspiration, and after a few seconds said, "All right, I'm in. Now, how is this thing going to operate?" "It's really quite simple. We need 30 rupees for the 6 forecast tickets. I'll put in 10 and you put in 10. The third 10 will come from a holy source." "A holy source? You mean you will borrow a tenner from Father Coutinho and ask him to bless it?" "No, no, Ignacio. You know a priest will not bless a banknote. We'll ask Norby, the verger in the church, to take it out of the collection." Ignacio cut Jacob short. "Have you gone stark raving mad? You know it's a sin to steal from the church." "We won't be stealing, Ignacio, just borrowing. We'll put the money back the moment the races are over." Jacob obviously had it all worked out. "What if Norby refuses?" "He won't refuse. I've already asked him and he said yes. In fact, he was quite tickled by the idea. That tenner will bring us luck. I foresee a problem, Jacob. What if the horse doesn't come in? How are we going to return the money to the collection?" "We'll cross the bridge when we come to it. Meanwhile, trust me, nothing will go wrong." "Sorry to keep harping on the informant, Jacob, but how can this fellow who briefed your sister's boyfriend be so cocksure that Sea Rider will win the race?" "A tipster who gets up at 6 to watch horses at their morning gallop told my sister's boyfriend that 2 days ago Sea Rider did a 5 furlong sprint in 1 minute 3 seconds flat." After the church service, the two friends headed for the race course. They had already missed the first race, but that did not matter, as it was the fourth race in which they were interested. They paid their entrance fee for the first enclosure and bought a copy of the official race book. This document gave detailed information on the length of the races, the horses that had been entered, their owners, trainers, and jockeys, and the weight the horses were carrying. There were also tips on which animal was likely to be the winner and which the runner-up. Jacob was delighted to see that in the fourth race Sea Rider had not been mentioned in the first two positions. "His odds will be excellent," Jacob said to Ignacio, "and I hope Rose of Sin comes second as the mare is fetching 12 to 1 at the bookmakers." Suddenly, he spotted his sister's boyfriend, and the two friends walked over to where he was standing. The boyfriend shook hands with Ignacio and Jacob somewhat awkwardly and said, by way of introduction, "I have just heard that both the jockey and the trainer have passed on information about Sea Raider to quite a few people. This will definitely bring down the odds." "Will we at least get 1,000?" Ignacio asked, the vision of a second-hand motorcycle floating before his eyes. "The toad should pay at least that much, because most of the guys who have been given the tip are not the type that go in for forecasts. They will head straight for the bookies." "Have you placed a bet on Sea Rider?" Ignacio asked the boyfriend. "Of course. I got a good price at the bookies. I have also taken a travel tote, which means that if the three horses I have selected from three different specified races win, I will make a tidy sum. By the way, Sea Rider is being ridden by the most experienced jockey in the stables, an Australian by the name of Danvers. As the fourth race won't start for another hour, why don't I buy you two a plate of halim and a glass of cold beer?" "What are Danvers' colors?" Jacob asked the boyfriend. "Purple. A nice royal color, wouldn't you agree? Look, The horses have come under the starter's orders. The starter fired his pistol, and the horses were off. From where he stood, all Jacob could see was a group of steeds bunched together charging at a furious pace. Now one horse would go into the lead and fall back, and a couple of seconds later another animal would assume the leadership, and he would too fall back. He couldn't spot the purple colors, and prayed Danvers wasn't bringing up the rear. The status quo was retained until the bunch rounded the bend. And then, all of a sudden, an incredible thing happened. One horse shot forward and left the bunch standing, like an arrow from the bow of a Sioux warrior. Jacob yelled out the line in excitement. Ignacio and Jacob and the boyfriend recognized the purple colors as the chestnut flash past their eyes. They gave a yelp which might have been heard by the verger in St. Anthony's Church. The favorite, a mare called Mata Hari, came second, a good 6 lengths behind the winner. When the jubilation finally ended, the friends learned that the forecast paid 2,400 rupees, which split three ways, came to 800 rupees each. After collecting the money, the two friends bid a joyous farewell to the boyfriend and headed for the exit. Once outside the gate, Ignacio said, "I'll let you hold the money, Jacob, until we get home, and then we'll split it three ways. After all, the whole thing was your idea." Jacob accepted the honor graciously and put the money into the pocket of his shirt. The two friends unlocked their bicycles and pedaled for Ignatius' mother's flat. Along the way, Jacob whistled his favorite tune and looked up at the sky where birds circled overhead. Suddenly, without warning, a motorcyclist shot out from a side lane and headed in Jacob's direction. Jacob swerved to avoid a collision. In the confusion, he lost his balance and fell headfirst towards an open manhole. A bundle of the banknotes slipped out of his pocket and into the manhole. Ignacio helped his friend up and dusted his clothes. "It looks like our winnings have slipped into Karachi's sewage system," Jacob said a little tearfully. "All that planning and trouble for nothing." "To hell with the money, thank the Lord you are safe," Ignacio said, somewhat wistfully watching his dream evaporate before his eyes. After a few seconds he said, "Is any of the money left?" Jacob rummaged in his pocket and pulled out a note. "Just a lousy 10 rupees. I'm afraid we'll have to return that to Norby," Ignacio said. "After all, it is holy money. What is taken from the church must go back to the church." After a minute or two, he continued, "Let's just hope and pray the boyfriend doesn't lose interest in your sister."